Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Yesterday was a very, very emotional and difficult day for me. I didn't plan on speaking today at all, but I felt that we had to bring some closure to this discussion on the Sanctuary Cities bill. So I spent some time in the back today. It's been very hard for me to look at any of you because I'm filled with a lot of sadness and I want to be candid with you, a lot of anger about this bill. And I sat in the back and tried to compose my thoughts and come up with something befitting what I think the gravity of today is. And I came across this quote. It was a very interesting quote about immigrants. Quote, "Few of the children in the country learn English. The signs in our streets have inscriptions in both languages. And unless the stream of their importation could be turned, they will soon outnumber us. That all the advantages that we have will not be able to preserve even our language, and even our form of government will become precarious." That fearful statement, does that sound familiar? Do you ever hear that about immigrants overrunning us? Nobody speaks English. Well, that quote came from Benjamin Franklin in the 1750s when he was talking about German immigrants. In fact, immigrants that I'm willing to bet at some level are the ancestors of many of the people in this room. Same kinds of things have been said about generation of immigrants, whether they're Czechs here in Texas. I know Kyle Casal is Czechoslovakian. Swedes or Scandinavians, Representative Larson, Italians, Representative Capriglione, Poles, and countless others who emigrated to this country and this state. And while even some of our founding fathers could not resist these anti-immigrant impulses, our great nation has always been drawn back together by our better angels. And our nation has always been guided by that lamp that beckons to the world, that stands in New York Harbor, and it says, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse, not the best and brightest, the wretched refuse from your teeming shores. Send these, the homeless, the tempest-tossed to me, and I lift my lamp at the golden door." Yet on the House floor yesterday, the discussion about immigrants was about illegal aliens and lawbreakers, criminals. I got to tell you, members, I don't know what part of Texas you all represent, and I can't speak for your communities, but I see a very different picture in the community that I represent. In the end, we're talking about human beings. They're created in God's image, members. We invoke God on a regular basis on this House floor, and these immigrants, be they documented and undocumented, are created in God's image. And members, they're the finest people I've ever met. In fact, the immigrants to this country commit crimes at materially lower rates than even our native-born Americans, but you would not know that from the discussion that we had on the House floor yesterday. You would have no idea that that was the case. You know, I greet these undocumented immigrants in my community as fellow parents who, like my immigrant parents, are doing everything in their power to give their kids a better life. There are people in our churches, and they've breathed life into declining congregations all over this state. And they sing hallelujah, alleluia, to God at the top of their lungs. They're entrepreneurs who are building impressive businesses as generations of immigrants have done before them. And most days, these are the people who you walk by without giving a second glance. They're the lady that you walked by this morning who was mopping the floor. the people who were doing yard work as you drove in, and the people who build our cities and our roads in the hot Texas sun. Some of you might even employ them. In fact, I will repeat a self-evident truth that this country was not built upon a Puritan work ethic. This country was built on an immigrant work ethic. And that is all good. But the message that we are sending from this body, we are sending it loud and clear today, is that once your work is done, you and your families had better stay in the shadows. Because don't forget this, we the powerful are telling you we will pick you up. We value your work during the day, but at night you better be scared because we will pick you up. So every minute these people who live among us, who make our lives better, when they're driving home, they're shopping, they're going to the store, they have to be afraid. They have to be ashamed. They have to be fearful in the knowledge that their whole lives can be upended at any moment. And yesterday, through our vote, and today's vote, which is a foregone conclusion, we are ensuring that that will continue. That these people will live in constant fear of a sidelong glance from anybody in a uniform. In our cities, even our courthouses and our universities. And enough about them. I want to ask you about you. My colleagues here in the House. When we often reflect on the history of the treatment of minorities in this country, we consume it in black and white. 35 millimeter film, grainy, sometimes torn, still photos. And we look at these photos and we look at the men and the women in the background. Sometimes they're spitting, sometimes they're cursing, sometimes they're unleashing dogs, sometimes they're aiming water cannons. And we think to ourselves, how could this be? Surely they had kids, they loved their families. And we wonder to ourselves, what could have been in their hearts? Was it hate? Is it fear? The modern day discrimination is far more sophisticated, ladies and gentlemen. You don't see the dogs, you don't see the water cannons. And it's not 35 millimeter, it's digital. And SB4, I fear, is the punctuation on a straight line of discrimination that I've seen in this House since 2011. And yesterday, I was accused of impugning the integrity of the members of the House by pointing out that 6 federal court rulings have found intentional discrimination by this body since 2011. But actually, it's not me saying it. I don't have to say it. It's the record of this House. It's the record of this House leadership. Federal judges have said this. This is not Rafael Anchia. This is not Representative Anchia saying this. 6 different judicial opinions have found intentional discrimination by this House. In Corpus Christi, in San Antonio, and in Washington, D.C. These judges were appointed by Republicans, and they were appointed by Democrats. And that is the record. So when history examines this timeline in this moment, and your kids, maybe your grandkids, see you in the background of some of these photos, will they ask, who were you? How could this be? I know you had kids and loved your family. What was in your heart? Was it fear? Was it anger? Members, if your goal, and I'm not saying this of all of you, but I'm asking, if your goal was to use immigrants for political gain, you have succeeded. If your goal was to strike terror in the hearts of immigrants so that they go home, succeeded. And if your goal was to win yesterday at all costs, you succeeded. As the vanquished in yesterday's battle, I say congratulations, and I hope you're satisfied. Thank you.